So the parts we're going to be throwing into the bike: a set of sprockets front and rear, Honda OEM, and a new RK530 chain with 108 links. I will be putting part numbers and links where you can get these parts down in the description below if you need them for your bike. I do recommend checking the owner's manual to make sure that you get the correct part the first time around. The shop manual doesn't ask for a 530, it specifies it needs a different kind of chain. I believe it specifies it needs a 630, but everything online points to a 530 chain being needed for this bike, and once I take the chain off we can compare the two. But these are sprockets for 530 and a chain that will work with those. So this is what we are dealing with. This is the chain that we have on there with a ton of slack, and it has been neglected. We can see that proper chain maintenance was not done. And having a worn chain, improper adjustment of the chain, or worn sprockets can cause a lot of issues when you're riding. First thing I want to do is expose the front sprocket. So we're going to need to remove this cover, and it looks like there's a couple of bolts, and I believe it also goes under the shifter, so we're gonna have to remove that as well. 8mm bolts that are holding this cover on. So that was a challenge to get off, but loosening up that 10mm bolt and then sticking a flathead here and just giving it a couple whacks did end up getting that out, so nothing broke. Whew, that one almost stripped. Alright, less than 5 minutes in, first hurdle. All the bolts came out in one piece on the front sprocket cover, but I can't get the cover off because of this footrest placement. So we got the footrest, this little 90-degree angle, and a bolt holding that in, going through the engine, through the frame, and through the other side to the other footrest. So we're gonna have to remove that. This is a 19, and on the other side there's a 17 nut on there. I'm just gonna try to remove this bolt. Seems to just be spinning freely, but it has loosened up the footrest a little bit. So on the right side of the bike, to fix the issue with this bolt in my way, I essentially just left the wrench here, and it spun, stopped here, and kept spinning the rest of the way. So now I can just freely remove that. Perfect. So the way that this is placed here, naturally it sits like that. This bolt runs through, and then there's a little hole there, and it sits in a stud in here. So once you've loosened the 19 bolt out, you can then rotate this freely, and what should happen is we can then clear and remove the cover. That was a little wasp nest in there. Well, that's not terrifying at all. So now we've got the cover removed and the front sprocket exposed and all of the dirt and grime that has been sitting there for probably decades. Went ahead and removed the wasp nest that we had in the corner, so that's going to be a lot of weight reduction. Give me that extra speed I've been looking for when riding this bike. When you're working on a bike that you bought used, and it's a vintage bike like this one, don't be surprised if you find a lot of surprises. When you see a chain that is worn, you can also assume that whatever's in here or anything you can't see is probably going to be in the same condition. It's poor. So now we're on the right side of the bike with the rear wheel. This should look fairly similar to my how to adjust a motorcycle chain video, which I will throw up right now. So what we need to do is remove this cotter pin, loosen this axle nut, that way we can freely move the wheel. So ultimately we're trying to get the chain off. Metric is the way to go. I don't have anything bigger than a 22mm that'll fit this, but here's a 15/16 that will do the job. And because we're doing sprockets as well, we can't have a new chain on bad sprockets. We're going to take this rear wheel off. The axle nut has been removed already. Now we just have to run the axle all the way through. After disconnecting a couple parts on the right side, I'm driving this axle bolt all the way through. Naturally, because this part gets disconnected from the right swing arm, the tire is going to want to droop down. I've got a jack placed here so it's at least a little level, and then I can keep driving it through without too much resistance. The really important thing you want to keep in mind is as you're doing this, try to keep in mind where everything goes. For example, when I was driving it out, I heard that fall out, and this little part goes right in here, and there's one on the other side as well. So keep in mind of stuff like that. So I took a moment to do a little research to find out the best way to remove the front sprocket, and there are a couple of methods. The method I went with was an impact. That is now out. After removing the wheel with the rear sprocket and the front sprocket, we're left with the chain just hanging here. Most bikes that I'm aware of, the chain has a master link. The master link pretty much, well, separates and conjoins the chain. It's held by a plate. I'm not going to put it back on because it was a pain to take it off. It's held on by a plate and a clip. Anytime I make a video, I want to try to show the good, the bad, the issues I run into. This took a very long time for me to take off. I tried using my chain breaker. I think I broke the tool. I'm not sure completely. So I went at the master link again because it wasn't coming off. So I was finally able to take this thing off, and the way I did it was with the clip on. I jammed a flathead screwdriver and then just hit it a couple times until that clip came off. And for the plate, again, flathead screwdriver, I got it between a little gap against the plate that's on the plate and the edge of the link. I hit it with a hammer until it started to separate, and finally it popped off. And, well, there's our chain. Once you remove your rear sprocket, the rear sprocket is all that should come out, but in my case, the whole thing kind of came out with another part of the drum. So what I ended up having to do is just spray some lubricant on the studs, give it a couple whacks. There it is. Got our old sprocket, our new one, and our new front sprocket as well. So look at these ridges here. So they're turning into shark fins, and well, they're supposed to look like this. You know, a good mating surface for the chain to go on, and this is just asking for trouble. The front sprocket isn't too bad, to be honest, but we replace them in sets, so we're taking care of that. One thing that I did notice on the new sprocket is that there is a rim that goes all the way around. The old one does not have that, and these spaces around the sprocket are different than what we have on the original. Not sure if that's just a design change, maybe it's just compatible with other bikes and this is the design that they decided to go with in later years. I'm not sure. The new sprocket's also a little different too. There are threaded holes. I'm not sure if that's to maybe break it loose, but the old one does not have that. The old one does have a marking that says 18, which most likely corresponds with the teeth, so 18 teeth. I got 18 teeth on this one as well. This appears to be the back of the sprocket, so I'm just going to install it like so and bolt it down. Alright, the shop manual asks for 58 to 72 foot-pounds. I neglected to let you know what that white goop on the chain is and what I ended up doing with it and what you need to do with it when you are doing this job. This is what comes with brand new chains. I'm assuming it's a way to preserve them or to protect them from becoming corroded as they're sitting in warehouses. So after you get it installed or before, you need to make sure you clean all of that off, make it look as shiny as the sprocket looks. So I forgot to mention that, just making sure that we are aware of that before you do this job and something unforeseen happens. Now that we've covered that, I'll let you get back to the video. So I didn't record a proper outro for this video. If you could hear from all the banging, gunshots, and fireworks, this was recorded back in July 4th of this year, 2020. So after shooting this video and cleaning the chain, I just went for a ride and enjoyed the fireworks. So apologize for that. It may be a little bit more sloppier video than you're used to, a lot more shaking going on. I would try to get better at that, but hopefully you enjoyed the video and you learned something.